So just about by trade, I am an overthinker and overanalyzer, but for this video, I think it's going to work because I wanted to get the different positional groups their own little love. Okay, so I didn't want to just do the best defender in the competition because there are different styles of defenders. I didn't want to do just the best midfielder because there are different classes and positional groups amongst midfielders. So breaking up those styles of defenders in order to give them some love, as well as the other positions on the ground, is the point of this video. Now, you're not going to agree with all of my picks here. That's what the comment section is for. As long as we keep it civil, we're awesome, which you guys are great at doing. Not so much on Twitter, but that's a whole other problem that I've got at the moment. But there will be a little bit of clarity here in terms of the positional groups before I start handing out my awards for who I think is the best player in each position. Now, in order to determine which players would belong in which spots, I had to do a little bit of a deep dive into their stats. Now, I'm not going to bore you with all of the details, but some important things before we get into the comments, before going, where is this player? Where is that player? There are really only 4 that need to be spoken about. So Harry Sheezel and Nick Dacos are not in consideration for any of the defender spots because of their CBA attendance numbers. Okay, it's the exact same reason why Errol Goulden wasn't considered amongst the wingers. Yes, I know he's been an All-Australian wingman. I know that I've put him in my All-Australian wing positions before. However, he attended over 33%, a third of Sydney CBAs last year, and the guys that I am considering for the wing spots were nowhere near that amount, I should say, and I think they deserve the love in the wing position. And James Sicily, because of the inclusion of Josh Battle and Tom Barrass, will not be considered amongst the key defenders in the competition. Yes, Sis did play more one-on-one key defender style last year, but I think it would be a little disingenuous to those that have done it for maybe a decade or longer, that have been your certified key defenders, in order for Sicily to go, well, he did it for 1 year, maybe 18 months, therefore he can be thrown in there. That's not what I'm doing. Now, if there's anyone else that you want to question, you can absolutely throw it in the comments, guys. But like I've said, they're just my opinions. You'll agree with some, you'll disagree with some. That's the fun of it. Enough rambling. Let's do it. So let's start with our key defenders, and according to AFL player ratings, the top 3 key defenders in the competition last year were Sam Collins, Jeremy McGovern, and Tom Barrass, and the coaches' votes for key defenders were Mac Andrew, Sam Collins, and Cal Wilkie. I am giving the award for the best key defender in the competition, however, to Jacob Wiedering. Amongst all key defenders last year, and for a guy that's been able to do this for his entire career, and yes, Harris Andrews, Sam Collins, Sam Taylor, all very stiff, I understand that, but in terms of what he's been able to put together for the last 2 seasons, but especially last year, is that he had as many defensive one-on-one contests as any other key defender in the competition last year outside of the 2 West Coast boys, and lost the least amount of them. Jacob Wiedering last year only lost 11%. That's 1 in every 9 of his one-on-one contests last year. That is bonkers and means more to me than what he's either able to do with ball in hand. As far as I'm concerned, an era in which most people are going to say that the key forwards are not nearly as good, you can only compete against who is in front of you, and he was able to do it the best. And that hurts because I love Sam Collins and Sam Taylor more than nearly anyone else does. Both of them absolutely deserve to be on the pedestal there. What Jeremy McGovern's been able to do over time is extraordinary. Not discounting that at all. I can only give it to one person. I'm going with Wieders. And then we're going to go to the small defenders. What does this mean? Very simply is you had to have a set amount. Off the top of my head, I think it was 5 or more defensive one-on-one contests. So rebounding defenders is next. But you had to be a smaller player who was having and winning one-on-one contests. This is not the handball out the back, high meters gained, guys. This is, are you smaller? Can you beat your opponent and maybe do some damage on the other end? With those parameters in place, the AFL player ratings ranked Connor Iden as number 1, Nick Vlaston as number 2, and Andy McGrath as number 3. The coaches' votes, though, went to Jarman Impey at number 1, which was a surprise to me, Zach Guthrie number 2, Andy McGrath number 3, and I'm actually going to go with the player ratings on this one and give it to Connor Iden. I think what he's able to do as a back shoulder defender whilst getting the ball in hand is absolutely awesome. He was in a lot of defensive one-on-one contests last year, and amongst a really good GWS defense with, of course, Sam Taylor, Jack Buckley and Harry Himmelberg as that third style tall defender, Iden being able to be like, go play on the opposition's best small forward and you effectively forget about him, makes him one of the best. And as a Hawthorn fan, I love that Jarman Impey hit all the thresholds that I was looking for to differentiate between a small defender and not. But there we go. Blake Hardwick, Isaac Quaynor, also guys that I thought about. Not going to lie to you. IQ had a bit of a down year last year. Dimmer didn't play as that small lockdown defender all year. Doesn't look like he's going to do it this year either. So Connor Iden for me. And to be honest, there is a real argument to be made that GWS have got the best key defender and the best small defender in the competition. Pretty good. Now we go to the rebound defenders. So effectively, your meters gained had to be up, your disposals, all of those kinds of things. Score involvements from the back half were also a consideration numbers-wise in order to sort players into their particular groups. And this is where we get the halfback flankers, effectively. So, according to AFL player ratings, you've got Jack Sinclair, Max Holmes, and Sam Flanders as the three best last year. The coaches' votes went Max Holmes, Dane Zorko, and then Bailey Dale. And considering this guy met the threshold, I am giving the best rebound defender in the competition to Tom Stewart. He hit the meters gained threshold that I needed. He didn't have enough defensive one-on-ones that put him in the small defender category, therefore he's here. But for mine, I think the three best in the comp right now is quite easily Stewart, Sicily. Whoever you want to put first or second is absolutely fine with me. And then the third is going to be on rotation. I love Max Holmes as a player. Dane Zorko last year was brilliant. I think Dan Rioli can have a really big year at Gold Coast this year. Not denying him for a moment. You've got Nick Martin as another guy there who can also come into the fold. You've got Luke Ryan, who for super coaches and AFL fantasy players will cash in the first half of the year and then drop off a little bit with an abundance of other guys. Stewart for mine going into this year is the rebound defender I think would give you the most nightmares as an opposition supporter. Therefore, I'm going with him. Sorry, Hawks fans, that I'm giving it to a cat. Forgive me. So now that the three defenders are done, let's go to the wingers. And like I said, Errol Goulden is out here. 33% CBAs is just too many because, let's be honest, Sydney's depth is what's stopping him from being a midfielder, not necessarily the fact that he is a out-and-out winger, right? When you've got Heaney, when you've got Rowbottom who can roll through there, Mills is going to come back there. So Errol probably might go to a wing more this year. It became too messy. You're out. We're looking at guys who did less than 12% CBAs. That was your qualification here because unfortunately AFL player ratings don't have a wing section. It's all midfielders. I had to narrow it down. Here we are. According to AFL player rankings, the top three wingmen in the competition are Blake Acres, Josh Dacos, and Justin McInerney. The coaches' votes gave it to Massimo D'Ambrosio, Josh Dacos, and Lockie Scholl from the Crows. And pretty easy for me, this one, I'm going with Josh Dacos. Now, apparently, and I only say apparently because I haven't seen it yet, going off track watches and all this, Dacos is training off a halfback flank, so I can completely understand if this goes to shit relatively quickly throughout the season because you've got Will Hoskin Elliott and I think Pat Lipinski, who is training on the other wing as well. So Blake Acres here would absolutely be the correct answer if that comes to fruition. At this point in time, though, Josh won a best and fairest in a premiership year on a wing. And sure, he may not have had the greatest year of his career last year, but he has done enough with runs on the board and had a good enough year last year that I am quite happy putting him here in this category. If he starts opening round or plays the first month as a genuine halfback flanker, insert Blake Acres here. And what a story he is, just quietly. Let's go to the inside midfielders. What made you an inside midfielder? Well, very simply, your contested possession rate had to be rather high. So we're looking at the guys that were over 47.5% of their disposals were contested possessions that were getting inside the contest. And it genuinely, as simple as that, I think it became a really easy process to go the inside versus the outside versus the hybrid guys. So inside midfielders, who were winning contested possessions at a large rate? Well, according to the AFL player ratings, you've got Patrick Cripps, Caleb Sarong, and Lockie Neal. According to the coaches' votes, you've got Lockie Neal, Patrick Cripps, and Caleb Sarong. Therefore, it's probably going to be one of those three guys. Got someone like Tom Green, who did fit the mold. The threshold of an inside mid is also someone to consider. I don't think he's at the level of the other three guys. And as much as I think Caleb Sarong can win a Brownlow and can win it this year, like he's my smoky for this year, if you will, I'm going with Patrick Cripps. Not just because he won the Brownlow more recently. Picking between two Brownlow medalists is always going to be hard. I know that Lachie Neale came second in the Norm Smith medal, with plenty of people thinking that he could have won the thing. I thought Will Ashcroft was the worthy winner, but again, that's a whole nother discussion. The reason why I'm going Cripper is he's a little bit younger, which I think helps. The body size, shape, durability, not that Lachie Neale is not durable at all, but you're splitting hairs on these things. I just think the bigger body as an inside midfielder helps him a little bit more. Neale is cleaner by hand, not denying that for a moment. Neither of them are expert kicks. Not a lot of Brownlow medalists outside of Dustin Martin in the last sort of 10 or so years are. If we're being completely honest, like Ollie Wines, Nat Fyfe, Patrick Dangerfield, these guys were not and are not great kicks of the footy. So that's not denying them. Take your pick between those two, I think, and roll from there. And if you think it's someone else, just wait until we get through all the midfielder categories. So now let's go to your outside midfielders. What does that mean? Well, you had to be positionally a midfielder on the AFL positional rankings, and your contested possession rate had to be below 42%. So if more of your disposals, by quite a margin, were not contested, you can happily slot into that outside midfielder role. You also needed to have a good centre bounce attendance percentage, otherwise we're getting you confused with some wingers. So with those parameters in place, the AFL player ratings for outside midfielders read Hayden Young number 1, Adam Treloar number 2, and Noah Anderson number 3. According to the coaches' votes, you're looking at Errol Goulden number 1, Chad Warner number 2, and Zach Merritt as number 3. And my winner for the best outside mid in the competition is going to go to Errol Goulden. Yes, Chad Warner, Zach Merritt, and nearly all of the guys mentioned. Adam Treloar last year was outstanding. Noah Anderson's just been named captain of the Gold Coast. And I love the fact that Hayden Young is included in that category just quietly. And there are others that you can think of. Absolutely. Errol, by foot, is still one of the more dangerous players in the competition. Yes, their argument is very easily made that he doesn't have a great finals record, especially in the grand final. I understand all of that. All I'm thinking as well, because I'm not putting any players from my own club in this discussion, is which outside midfielder of all the guys that I had in that category scares me the most if they were best on ground against my team. And for me, that was Errol. And what he's been able to do, especially in Battle of the Bridge games, where he won 3 of them in 12 months, what he's been able to do with that left foot, the running capacity, he's just so dangerous, and that has him ahead of a few others for me. And then the last of the midfielder awards, the hybrid midfielder, which took into account that 42 to 48% contested possession percentage, centre clearances and stoppage clearances relatively close together, so you're able to do it with numbers around and in a one-on-one capacity. Your heat map got took into consideration as well here. So the finalists effectively, or how the AFL Player Ratings and Coaches Awards saw it, went like this. The AFL Player Ratings had Marcus Bontempelli as number 1, Isaac Heaney as number 2, and Nick Dacos as number 3 with these parameters. The coaches went Heaney 1, Dacos 2, Bontempelli 3, and I'm giving the award for the best hybrid mid in the competition, Marcus Bontempelli. Now, I have got my gripes, right, and I've said it on the channel before that I've got my gripes with the fact that the Bont has escaped leadership doubt more than any other captain in the competition when you compare it to pressure on the coach. What I will say and state forever is that I have no doubt over the Bont's ability as a player. At worst, if Marcus Bontempelli is not in your top 4 best players in the comp, I feel like your list is invalid. I know that's just an opinion and it's quite an obnoxious one to have, but that's where I stand. But he is your prototypical midfielder. The size, the kicking ability, the goal-scoring opportunity, although I still think that's something that moving forward, the Bulldogs may need more of him, especially as they bring in a younger brigade of midfielders. I know Treloar is not going to be there for the start of the year. Libba is getting on a little bit. Yes, they've got Riley Sanders in there. If Bailey Smith had have stayed, that would have made it really interesting. But he was used incorrectly in that elimination final against the Hawks, which was good for us as Hawks fans, let me tell you. But for mine, he is still the best. Heaney was amazing last year. Nick Dacos is a star, as we know. Harry Sheasel, who did qualify a little bit, more as that outside, not quite there. Very close is the Shees. And there is a genuine conversation to be had about who is better, he or Nick Dacos. Just because Sheasel plays at North doesn't mean he doesn't deserve his due credit. But for me, it's still Bont. Let's go to the ruck, because I think there is very little debate about the ruck at this point. So for the AFL player rankings, Max Gawn was 1, Tristan Sherry 2, Rowan Marshall 3, and according to the coaches' votes, Max Gawn was number 1, Rowan Marshall number 2, and Brodie Grundy was the third best ruckman in the competition according to the coaches. The answer is Max Gawn. I think Tristan Sherry can be the best ruckman in the competition by the end of this season if everything goes to plan. And I think there are quite a lot of number one rucks that are really good. There are not many number one rucks in the competition right now that you would state are not that great. If the 12th best ruckman in the competition, now I'm just doing this off the top of my head, I could very well be wrong here. Just work with me for a second here. But if we say the 12th best ruckman in the competition is someone like Jordan Sweet, let's just say. He may not be, but just off the top of my head. That's a really good spot to be in. You got Darcy Cameron, Lloyd Meek, these guys who you go, yeah. Well, in Darcy Cameron's case, he is good enough to get you to a flag. Darcy Fort and Oscar McInerney, although I think McInerney is hella underrated. He's still really good. And then you go to the bottom of the pile. Maybe Sam Draper can have a good year this year, but I'm still unconvinced. What's happening with West Coast, Bailey Williams, Matt Flynn. Outside of that, Riley O'Brien. But they've got the guy who Sydney delisted, I think it's Lachlan McAndrew is his name, who's apparently training really well. So there's not really too many bad ruckmen out there. No one's as good as Max Gawn right now. All right, let's go to the midfield forwards. Very different to the high half forwards. I'll explain that in a minute. But midfield forwards, you needed to have a goal threshold, you needed to have a CBA percentage threshold, and you needed to have an inside 50 and score involvement thresholds as well. So I know all of that is really complicated, but I promise you, putting all of those things together made this an easy list to dissect through according to the AFL player ratings with those parameters. Jason Horne-Francis was the number 1 ranked in the competition last year. Liam Bacon number 2, Shea Bolton number 3. The coaches had Jason Horne-Francis as number 1, Isaac Rankin as number 2, and Shea Bolton at number 3, and I still believe that the best one there is Jason Horne-Francis. Yes, his defensive pressure is not perfect, but I feel like of all the players in this group, he is the one that gets criticised the harshest. Now, I think this is going to be an amazing year for your midfield forwards and your high half forwards. I genuinely hope and I pray that we actually get proper half forwards in the All-Australian team. So what I mean by that is that hypothetically, with those names mentioned, if Horne-Francis, Rankin, or Shea Bolton ended up in the All-Australian team on a half-forward flank, would you complain? My answer instinctually would be no. And neither would the high half-forwards that I'm going to talk about in the next category. Right, but what I don't want is Chad Warner and Christian Petrarca ending up there, because that's not what they do. I know Warner kicked goals, but he was a goal-kicking midfielder last year, right? Or either here, Heaney was in the midfield. I think it was Warner on the All-Australian half-forward flank. That's not what we want. We've got good enough players in these positions to put them in their positions. So do that. And I've already done a video on how much of Hornet stock that I'm buying, so you can check that out if you want to. So to the high half-forwards now. Now, effectively, what's the difference between the two? Very good question. Meters gained inside 50s and score involvements, you had to hit the particular threshold, but you needed to have a really low centre bounce attendance percentage, right? And I'm talking below 15, around that mark, right? So what you're not doing is being able to go, yeah, I get centre bounces and then I move forward. That's what the last category is for. This is your ability to get up the ground and hurt the opposition the other way. Very big difference there. So according to AFL player ratings, Brian Myers, Dylan Moore, and Brent Daniels were the 3 best high half forwards last year. And according to the Coaches Award, Dylan Moore, Brian Myers, and Cam Rayner were the 3 best last year. And I genuinely believe that this is a 2-horse race. It's Brian Myers, it's Dylan Moore. Now, for me, I'm going with Dylan Moore. Now, but before anyone comments going, you're just being biased towards the Hawks. First of all, Stewart over Sicily is argument 1. Argument 2 for this is I just took the comparisons of last year between these 2 players. and more clears, Brian Myers is a star, and any team with Brian Myers in it is going to be more dangerous forward of the footy. I am not disrespecting Grind in any way, but check these numbers out. So whilst, yes, Grind did have more disposals on average, disposal and kicking efficiency favours Dylan in a massive way, same as inside 50s. Now, that's a pretty impressive meters gain differential, I'll grant you that. But contested possessions, centre clearances, marks, contested marks, not that matters a whole lot considering how small they are. But he kicked more goals, did Dylan on average as well, had more shots on goal, more goal assists, and more score involvements. That's good enough for me. That's all I'm saying. But Grind Myers, Brent Daniels as a top 3 there, that is scary good. And how Cam Rayner performs with no Joe Danaher this year is ultra interesting, and I definitely think can make himself into that All-Australian squad of 40. Alrighty, before we get to the key forwards, we've still got these small forwards. So we are talking about those that do kick goals, obviously, but aren't looking so much at things like inside 50, score involvements, and meters gained. Well, score involvements is still key, but not so much the others because they are going to be inside 50, right? So according to the AFL player ratings, Tyson Stengel, Cozzy Pickett, and Tom Papley were the 3 best in the competition last year. And according to the Coaches Award, Cozzy Pickett, Toby Green, and Tyson Stengel are there. Now, this was really hard for me to do because, again, I think the contingency of small forwards in the competition is relatively strong. I really do. So I just did this as simple as which small forward on that entire list that qualified for me scares the shit out of me more as an opposition fan. And for me still, that's Toby Green, who's kicked over 120 goals in the last 3 years, as has Tyson Stengel, by the way. Toby's still the answer. I genuinely think, though, if you debate that, argue it, put someone else there, that's absolutely fine. I'm going to have no response to that because there are so many good answers here. He still scares me more than any other small forward in the competition, though. That's why I've picked him. It's as simple as that. So let's go to the key forwards. According to the AFL player ratings, Jeremy Cameron 1, Jesse Hogan number 2, Charlie Curnow number 3, and according to the Coaches Award, you've got Jeremy Cameron at 1, Jesse Hogan at 2, and Josh Tracy, the big kahuna, at number 3, which we love. I do think it's a genuine 2-horse race. I know Jesse Hogan won the Coleman last year. I really do. And put together one of the more offensive, dominant years that we've seen in a while in terms of his ability to win one-on-one contests. But this is Cameron or Curnow. For me, I'm going with Jeremy Cameron. His ability to get up the ground, damage you. He plays with a freedom that is pretty envious to watch, if I'm being completely honest. And if, life on the line and I had to put together a team positionally to save my life, I am having Jeremy Cameron over Charlie Curnow if they are the options. Stood up in big games as well, a dominant player, the beer celebration, all of it adds up to him, in my opinion, being the best key forward in the competition. Although, I will say this, that I still think he would be the greatest half forward in AFL history because of that aerobic ability. If you had, say, Tom Hawkins and a Josh Tracy type player together, and Jeremy being the number 3, he never was that at GWS. He never was that at Geelong, so we never saw it. It's just a theory I have. So, 11 categories of players, and my number 1 for each. Like the video if you like the video. Subscribe to join the Daz Talks Footy family. Got another video coming this week that is going to be team-centric, so looking forward to that. Hopefully you are as well. Have a fantastic start to your week, guys. I'll see you in the next one, and thank you very much for watching.